Warning: the story discussed in this video may not be suitable for all audiences. While I will try to keep the video more teen-rated than mature, viewer discretion is still advised. Well, you asked for it. Something really dark. And I'll be honest, there was a large part of me that didn't want to do this. Not so much because of my fears of doing something a little gory from MLP. That too, but we'll get to my biggest problem in a bit. However, I want to do something a little more challenging for this month of underappreciation, and this story seemed like the best choice for reasons I'll cover shortly as well. For now, ladies and gentlemen, this is Awoken.
Stay away, don't rest.
In a sort of sequel-prequel tie-in to the infamous Rainbow Factory, a Pegasus cultist failed his flying test, so he is sent to the factory with the other dropouts to be made into rainbows. However, he's not immediately thrown into the pot, and is made to work on the factory floor for a while, until his determination to live catches the eyes of the factory's Overmare, Rainbow Dash, which gets him promoted to a higher position that protects him from the rainbowification at the expense of killing other foals to do so. However, years later, after the events of the original story, he is presented a chance to end the Rainbow Factory, if he has both the courage to rebel and the luck to survive. Okay, so first thing first. The biggest problem I have, not the fact that it's a gore fic, that's give or take, it doesn't stop me from enjoying other stories in both this fandom and outside with some blood in it. No, one of my first problems also ties into the original story, the believability. And yes, I know a lot of good Grimdark My Little Pony fanfictions have to change up some things with the world of Equestria and its characters to work. But here's the thing, for the most part, when one of the main characters from the show takes on a more antagonistic and villainy role, you can still believe it is that character. Take Cupcakes. Whether you liked it or not, you, or at the very least me, could still believe that it was Pinkie Pie. A different reality Pinkie Pie from the one I know and love in the show, but nonetheless, still Pinkie Pie. With Rainbow Factory, this series expects you to believe that Rainbow Dash, the element of loyalty, best friend and adoptive sister to weak flyers such as Fluttershy and Scootaloo, being part of something like a factory in a world that makes Pegasus who can't fly into rainbow soup after making them feel like they are pathetic and shit in the process. Maybe it was just me, but even if they gave some explanation, I never found it easy to buy. Though personally I just like to think Rainbow Factory takes place in the G3 universe, and this is Rainbow Dash, the darling one, and instead of being ground up for being poor flyers, it's ponies who aren't perfect, cute, and dumb enough to fit in with their perfect world, which is why it is so mind-numbingly bland. The best part is you think I came up with this out of nowhere.
Are you insane? Hello! Please stop!
Wow, you know so much about rainbows.
Of course I do, darlings. If I don't know all about rainbows, who would?
Do you know how they're made? Welcome to the Rainbow Factory, failures!
Well, darlings, there are some things we're not supposed to know.
I just added those background sounds from Scribbler's dramatic reading. Aren't I gruesome? Though I did warn you. However, I should still judge this story as it is. And even without the new perspective I've given you, in all honesty, Awoken actually kind of stands strong on its own, if not better in most places, than the original, as a really good story. I wouldn't be giving it an underappreciation review otherwise. Mostly because, if anything, it actually uses the same suspension of disbelief to its advantage. See, in the original, yes, it does give a few explanations as to why Rainbow Dash was behind all this, and how the Equestria we know would allow the factory to exist, but after that, it just kind of expects you to go along with that for the rest of the ride. In Awoken, due to some better pacing, and kind of uses our lead trying to accept this new reality as the truth, to mess not just with his own head, but with ours, for some rather nasty psychological horror. It's a story that can wear you down, both our main characters and ourselves, breaks your spirit, demands a lot to get through, and makes you, and both our protagonists, hearts blacken as the world he lives in slowly makes him become as dark as the factory itself. Until one day when Rainbow Dash, in which this world becomes so surreal for him, he actually starts to consider her his idol, orders the fall's wings ripped off for no other reason than cruelty. This tears it when he wants to try and rebel, get out, and let the world know the truth, so the factory can be forever shut down. It fills you with hope, and then...
No spoilers!
Our hero tries to escape with some falls. They fail, Rainbow Dash kills him, and even after everything we have been through, how badly we wanted a happy ending after all this story expected out of us, it's an issue I kind of have with tragedy stories in general. I mean, as much as I enjoyed something like Oba Scribbler's dramatic reading of A Puppet to Her Fame, if I'd seen the fanfiction first, I probably wouldn't have read it, since, much like this story, I so badly wanted to see the main character get a happy ending after all that pain and suffering they had to go through. And then when we get to the ending that just kind of says, life sucks, deal with it, it kind of left me rather down and even upset at points. I mean, isn't the idea of dark elements to be used to make you appreciate when something goes right more? Now, sometimes it can work, like say, in Twilight's Dollhouse. Yes, it has a tragic tad, but because Twilight's not the only main character, it means the story is going to end badly. But you don't know if it will end badly for Twilight, the ponies turned into dolls, Lyra, or for all of Equestria, and it can still give someone you've been invested in following some happy conclusion. So, with that said, does that make this a bad story? Not really. I mean, it's fun if you want to go with the G3 interpretation. And if you don't mind some really heavy stuff, once again I highly advise this story is not for everyone, I still think it's a highly underrated fic, even if it is gory, tragic, and MLP, because it shouldn't be ignored, much in the way of all Grimdark stuff in this fandom, which, as much as I did want to do all of this, I was worried about how people would judge me for liking something like this, getting turned into something like this.
Celestial! Are you insane?
Yet, I think my fears and problems with the tragic and gory tag aren't unrelated. Sometimes there are bad things and unhappy endings, but that doesn't mean we should ignore it. Yeah, sometimes I'm still scared one of my younger nieces will one day want to look up something like Pinkie Pie Cupcakes, and I have to suggest something else, then explain to the parents later why it would be a bad idea. But then I think, even if I have to touch on to something uncomfortable, I would also say, yeah, there's dark stuff in this fandom, but isn't that the same with everything? It may be uncomfortable and shouldn't be watched or read by all, and I really wish some of the gory and darker stuff in this fandom wasn't so easy to find. But the fact is, without it, we'd be no better than the G3 verse, where anyone else could interpret this scene of Rainbow Dash not telling them how rainbows are made, is the writer going, people and children are too stupid to understand things like weather and light spectrum, and our world would be the poorer for it. Would I still like an Awaken to have a happy ending? Of course, but I guess I could wish that with a lot of things. But again, that's just life. If there's no suffering, there wouldn't be no enjoyment out of the things that are good and happy. If there are no challenges, there are no rewards, or nothing to gain out of any risk. And in a weird way, after the story, I could think about changing it to where our league does win. And it not only makes my day far more brighter, and in a way, it makes the original story stick with me much longer than if it did have a happy ending. And you can say it does kind of open doors for other stories where the factory does get shut down, and all the more rewarding when you find them. Though, this is a review about this story, and this is me saying, if you are a fan of the original, and don't mind something that's a little challenging and can take you outside your comfort zone, give it a like and read first, or at the very least, check out Oba Scribbler's dramatic reading from last year. I may not love it as much or think it's as underrated as Cleave or Carousel, but it's still well written, knows how to use the flaws of the original to its advantage, and even if it ends badly, it may be worth your time for a little macabre horror. Though, how about next week we look at something a little lighter in the tragedy tag? Till then, I do a few extra push-ups if I were you. You never know when being in shape will mean the difference between life and death.